One of the rumored off-season maneuverings for the Falcons appears to be imminent, as an NFL Network reporter has stated that Devonta Freeman could soon be on his way out of Atlanta. We'll give you all the details next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
Hello everybody, welcome into AJC Falcons News Now. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith. Good to have you with us. We're sponsored by Miller Lite. We'll talk about the Atlanta Falcons, everything going on with this organization over the course of the next 60 minutes. A lot of that will include your comments on both Facebook and YouTube, and of course we'll have a good time doing it. And unfortunately, there are certain parts of the conversation, though, that may be, Chuck, less fun than others, because we knew in some form or fashion we'd get here, now we are here, that Atlanta just doesn't have enough money. It's a salary cap league. You're always thinking about, the financial ramifications of every decision you make. We knew there'd be guys who played here in 2019 that Atlanta might not be able to afford to bring back for the upcoming season. We're now in that conversation, and a lot of this right now is going to center around Devonta Freeman, what the running back's future is here. That is one of the most often mentioned names of guys who could be on their way out.
And I think that's something we talked about. Remember we talked about this early in the season, and you talked about this a lot, about the ability to Falcons that they don't have no money and they're going to have to make some serious cuts. And when you look at sacrificing players, it kind of, hurts the product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Devonta Freeman, looking at his production, looking at his injuries, to me, he's one of the guys that stands out with his money and, where the Falcons just don't have the money.
And it's one of the examples of, if we do like a debate on Austin Hooper. Now, Chuck and I have both been a little bit more, I guess, pro-Hooper than someone in the audience has. But there's still going to be a lot of people in the audience who are like, hey, you got to do what you got to do to bring Austin Hooper back. That's a popular player. I think it's fair to say, based on the people who respond to us on YouTube, the people who respond to us on Facebook, the people that you probably interact with social media during the week, that Devonta Freeman's not that kind of player anymore in terms of popularity with Falcons fans. This is a guy that I think Atlanta has grown tired of. And we can debate whether this is an example of Dirk Cutter just being ineffective as a run play calling offensive coordinator, if Freeman has just been hobbled by injuries, if it was a huge mistake for Atlanta to give him an extension with the money they did, regardless of his health situation. We can kind of debate what all of this is, but at this point in time, Freeman is not a very popular player with the Falcons fans who watch our show.
Well, you're exactly right, and it comes down to production. It comes down to what you do on the field. And I think the injury thing sort of last year really took a little bit of, somewhat of the momentum he had gained over the years before that. And you know what? Austin Hooper is interesting. He's in the same position right now as Devonta Freeman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because he hit a home run. So Devonta, the year after, the year he gets his big money, the year before that, he was fantastic. You know what I mean? So people looked at him as the long-term solution, and then he comes back the next year, gets hurt, right? Not quite as effective, not seeing the kind of the movement. And just like Austin, he hit at the right time, right? He's hot. Right now the market is, big for tight ends. And I think Devonta, that's kind of helped him. But as you talked about the popularity kind of changing now, I remember how a lot of the fans were when he didn't have his contract. Mm-hmm. They were avid that we got to have him. We got to have him to win.
You go back, the feeling may have been different years ago.
A little different.
I think it's a fair point. Let me let you hear kind of the genesis of all of this today. Ian Rappaport, who had been reporting on Freeman a lot during the season, goes on the NFL Network. The subject of Devonta Freeman comes up, and Rappaport lays out the reasons in which maybe Freeman does not come back to Atlanta for this upcoming year. Here is Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network.
It sounds like it's pretty much up in the air in Atlanta, and certainly would be an option for the Atlanta Falcons to release him, move on, save about $3 million in salary cap space, avoid the cash, which is $6 million plus in salary, and kind of have a little bit of a new beginning as they begin to kind of reallocate where money is going to go in their franchise. That would not be a surprise. It is something that the Atlanta Falcons are weighing right now. And just consider this, and I know he's a big name and has been a big name, but they also considered very strongly trading him earlier, right around the trade deadline. I know Detroit was one of those teams that strongly looked into it. They had looked into the running back market as well. And if a team is willing to trade you, although they didn't ultimately do it, that means your tenure might be coming to an end. He's been injured a lot, been paid a lot of money. Certainly seems like the Falcons could go in the other direction.
So a couple things here. Saving $3 million or so on the salary cap means this isn't the only move like this you have to make, but Freeman may be the easiest decision on that. And the other thing, Chuck, is hearing Rappaport talk there, I think one of the things that would be frustrating for me as a Falcons fan, one of the things that just seems odd about all of this is Rappaport has been steadfast in his belief that Atlanta talked about trading him to Detroit. That's the team that he always mentions. Talked about trading him to Detroit at around the trading deadline time, much the same way Atlanta made the Mohamed Sanu trade with New England, that Freeman was a guy apparently talked about by the Detroit Lions. Mm-hmm. If Atlanta had a chance to trade him and didn't, only to sort of be where we kind of always knew Atlanta was going to be, right here with him head on the chopping block from a salary cap standpoint, it's a pretty big mistake not to trade a guy that you eventually have to cut, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think trading him would have given him a fresh start. But let me look at it from a different standpoint. We already know right now the Falcons, when you look at players, they're the kind of organization that sometimes holds on a little too long.
Yeah.
Sometimes gets players that you think should be gone. So think about it like this. Loyalty, that Falcon for life mentality that we talk about from the entire organization. Mm-hmm. We drafted you. We cultivated your entire, how you play. You know what I'm saying? We created you. And I just think it has to do with the loyalty of the Falcons, that they're kind of everybody. Look at the guys they're taking care of. You know what I mean? You got guys that, let's use it. We're going to talk about Keanu Neal.
Yeah. After
his second injury, they're saying, hey, we're ready for Kiki to come back. He's ready.
Right.
Look at Devontae. Look at Vic Beasley, who, should have probably been axed last year. Mm-hmm. We both talked about that. But look at some of the, guys that they've continued to, keep longer than they should. And I think Freeman has to do with, we drafted you, we're loyal, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a motivation when you're the guy that makes the pick, which Thomas Mitroff was, and Dan Quinn's shown some belief in him, obviously part of the decision to give him the contract extension. You want to give that guy the extra benefit of the doubt, whether it be conscious or subconsciously. It makes you look good to have him stay here and perform well. Mm-hmm. To have to axe him makes you look not quite so good, because it's the personnel guys who are, and some of which still here in Atlanta right now, who are the ones who made this initial decision.
Well, you're exactly right. But look, listen, Devonta Freeman, to me, outside of the contract in these last 2 years, he paid dividends now. What was he, a fourth-round pick? Mm-hmm. I don't know. He's a fourth-round pick. So when you look at some of the things he did, he helped the Falcons get to a Super Bowl. He was, really had a huge role in this, where they are as far as their development of this program, of the franchise. But we've seen it over and over and over, whether it's Todd Gurley, whether it's some of the other guys around the league. It's just like all of a sudden they go from being dominant, they go from being great players to what? A liability. Yeah. You know what I mean? They go for it, and it's crazy.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how it happened so fast.
I want to get some comments on the Freeman situation, the Falcons free agency in general. Let me just say one more thing, though, on the subject of not trading him, and maybe you could have. I mean, if Dimitroff were here right now, one of the things I think he might say is that you've got to show a willingness to walk away from a deal, and maybe that's what that kind of comes down to. If Rappaport's reporting is accurate and Atlanta had a chance to trade him, maybe they just didn't really feel like they were getting fair value back. Obviously, I would say that some value is better than no value at all, which ultimately is what you got here. But certainly Dimitroff might simply say, hey, in a trade situation like that, you got to make sure you're not getting held over a barrel. And that's obviously a fair point.
Yeah, and it is a fair point. But, listen, Thomas Dimitroff, the Falcons are in the business of getting the best deal they can. Because look, after what they did to New England with Mohamed Sanu, he's probably thinking we can hustle them too. Yeah. But, for the Falcons, that was an incredible deal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so to me, Freeman, I'm trying to get something from him, knowing that we either going to, cut bait on him, we're going to, or we're going to be able to trade him. So, and I just think that somewhere along the line, just like the Falcons' entire year was last year, was like, man, let's give him one more chance. Maybe in these last 8 games, we're going to turn around, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in these last games, he's our guy. Maybe he'll show us just enough so we can validate bringing him back.
Right.
And that didn't happen.
Yeah. Let me get some comments on this coming up. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Of course, Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories. I'll start on YouTube here today. And let me get a few of these. Fredo Smith says Freeman cost us the Super Bowl. Obviously, there are a lot of things that kind of show up there for that. 50 Millie has an interesting comment. He says, I think it's dumb to take a $6 million dead money hit just to save $3 million savings by keeping Devonta Freeman. So here's why I don't think that's dumb. And obviously, 50, you can disagree with this if you want to. But in addition to saving some money, you got to find some money to save somewhere. The fact of the matter is you can upgrade the running back position in the draft right now. So it's not just saving the $3 million, you got to do that. But you've also got to find a running back better than Devonta Freeman because, listen, you can talk about the past and what Freeman kind of has been when he first showed up here. But the truth is, right now, I don't view Freeman as a capable running back. I don't view him as the kind of back that you can build your running game around. So for me, getting rid of Freeman, it's not a foregone conclusion that's going to happen yet, by the way. The door, I guess, is still open for this not to take place. But if it does go down, this is not just Falcons saving some money. This is also getting a better running back to build your offense around, at least the component of your rushing attack. To build your rushing attack around a better running back, at this point in time, Freeman, to me, is not the kind of back, Chuck, that can shoulder the load that way.
Well, I don't think there's many that can shoulder the load.
Yeah.
So I disagree with you a little bit on Freeman when it comes to the standpoint. I don't think he's absolutely incapable of being a good running back. I just think he needs a true viable option who's going to work with him. Mm-hmm. And to me, he's the second back. He's not the first back. So I think there were times last year where he showed some flashes. And you know what? I've seen guys come back and even have a couple more years like Devonta Freeman. To me, you got to get him cheaper, but he needs to be a part of a true two-headed monster. But then you need a short yardage back. Yeah. You need a big guy that can run. You need somebody that can catch out the backfield, those kind of things. You know what I mean? But yeah. I don't think he's absolutely has no ability, but I definitely think he's not the same guy that we had in the beginning. I still think he has some juice left in him.
Let me ask you this. Gregory Brown and Marcus in our Facebook comment section, Marcus Alexander, talking about the version of Freeman we've seen post-injury. You obviously were defensive end, not a running back, but we know the kind of torque, that movement at the running back position. What is it like playing that spot, you think, when you've dealt with some injuries? Is there a psychological component associated with that? Are you worried about getting hurt again? Or is it just an example of physically you're just less than you once were?
I mean, it's just an accumulation of hits. I mean, listen, the running back position in the NFL is like you running your head into a wall to 25. If you run 25 carries, you're getting hit on the side of your head. You're getting hit in your head. You're getting hit in the ribs. I can imagine, Brandon, what it feels like after an NFL game to see what running backs go through.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And that's why, I always talk about Jamal Anderson, how he ran when he was knocking people around. I mean, there's no question it's going to impact you over time. You know what I mean? And to me, Freeman being smaller, being low center of gravity, he's taking his hits. But listen, everybody get concussions. After any player gets concussions, it's got to change you. Yeah. There's no way. Look at Luke Kuechly. That was all about concussions. The great Carolina linebacker. If anybody that's played soccer, anybody that's watching us right now, if you've had a concussion and the way that thing feels, you don't want to feel it again, particularly when you know it could happen at any minute.
So Brian Rogers in our Facebook comment section says that he still thinks that Freeman's got some gas left in the tank. And it's interesting. I played you the Ian Rappaport audio from the NFL Network. In that same conversation, you had someone else sitting at that desk who basically said the same thing, that if Freeman's available on the open market, that he'd have quite a few takers among other NFL teams. And I think back to this past season and the frustration that we would sometimes see from Falcons fans about the fact that Tevin Coleman, 544 yards rushing, he averaged 4 yards a carry, had 6 touchdowns. Having some success with Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers, there are a little bit of buyer's remorse on the part of some Falcons fans about Coleman being in San Francisco. So, Chuck, I'll ask you, if Freeman goes and plays somewhere else, we don't know yet for sure that's going to happen, but if that does happen, what are the chances that you look at Freeman finding some health again, finding some success again? Could you see Freeman benefiting from a new location?
No question. I agree 100%, and a lot of guys benefit from that because I just said, I don't think he's straight garbage. I don't think he's to be thrown out. I just think he still has value, but for the Falcons, the value is limited because you got other guys. You need to save money. So I can see him going somewhere else and running it, being healthy, because, again, motivation and heart go a long ways. And one thing about Freeman, he's got a lot of heart and he's motivated. and I think he'll go somewhere, and I think he'll be fantastic for a couple years. But he can't be the 20, he can't be the 15, 16 carry guy. He has to be 7 to 8 carries, be a role player, catch the ball 5 or 6 times, and that's the kind of guy he needs to be.
Rocky Ramsey brings up an interesting point that Freeman was good under Shanahan. That's about it. And it is so funny how many of these Falcons offensive weapons had their best moments working with Kyle Shanahan, and how few of them have been able to match that when working with other Falcons coordinators. I think Rocky's unfortunately hitting on a pretty good point. Let's talk about a replacement potentially for Freeman if it were to happen. Once again, to be clear, we don't know what Freeman's future here in Atlanta is, but the door is obviously open that he could be done. So Slam Bradley says we don't need to spend early draft capital on a running back. However, Rocky Ramsey also says, what about Jonathan Taylor, which would be potentially the kind of back you get in the second round? Jay Loves PTI says a second-round pick is too high for a running back. So if people feel that way, then they're maybe not going to like what I'm about to say. Given what I believe Atlanta's big need is, finishing off the pieces that it needs to make this a fully functioning offense, I wouldn't use a second-round pick on a running back either. I'd use a first-round pick.
Okay.
And I'd take DeAndre Swift. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
He's the best back available. I wrote this at DogNation.com this week. He's the best back available. I'm not excited if I'm the Falcons about Clavon Chasen. I'm not excited about AJ Epinesa from Iowa. Those to me feel like second-best options when the number one back is available. And statistically speaking, Atlanta was just as poor running the football as it was generating sacks. When you need an upgrade at running back, you have a chance to draft the best available. 16 doesn't seem too high when you think about the possibility that a team like Miami could grab him around 18 or so. At that point in time, I draft DeAndre Swift. I think he's the best back available. I think the Georgia fans who also cheer for the Falcons would love it. I think it's good for business. This to me just screams a move the Falcons should make.
Now, is that something that you really believe is viable? You really think he fits in there? Take the emotions out.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. Based on the mock drafts you see right now, it's a little bit of a reach.
Yeah.
But, one of the NFL Network guys has him going as high as 18. Atlanta drafting him at 16. That's not that much of a reach. We've given you multiple mock drafts, and I realize mock drafts aren't scripture, but I'm saying that's all we got right now is mock drafts. We've given you multiple mock drafts in this show the last couple of weeks where people have Atlanta taking a running back in the second round with one of the organization's 2 second-round picks. So if Swift's a guy that could be going somewhere in the teens, if Atlanta's a team that could be reaching for a running back in the second round, it's obviously a need. Swift is a player that could go somewhere in this range. It may be a little bit of a reach, but it ain't that much of a reach, at least in my eyes.
And I hear you. And to me, what Swift does, he brings in instant energy. He brings in instant opportunity for a big run, big threat, anytime, any minute. But to me at 16, I get it. And if my edge guy is there, right, ultimately edge, I wouldn't have a problem if the Falcons found their edge in the first round, went for another in the second round. But to me, at that position, I'm waiting until the second round, depending who's there. But my real thoughts are third round. My third round. And to me, on that first pick for the Falcons, I'm going for the best defender I can find that I feel is reliable at that pick. Meaning, if my edge guy's not there, there's a glaring weakness on this team now at safety and cornerback.
Yeah.
You can't remember, this is a passing league. You got to have guys that can play man-to-man, cover 2, because we seen the Falcons last year got away from cover 3 and cover 2. They start running zone. They tried to start playing man-to-man, and they got toe up. They got shredded. So I really wouldn't have a problem with that at 16 because, instantly, you add another weapon. Now you got Julio, you got Swift. Hey, I can see that. To me, that's not too high. But for me personally, I'm trying to fight. I'm fighting to try to get in that position, even if I got to go up. I'm big on that, too. If I got to go up to find the edge guy, you got to find him or figure out what you want to do in the first round, get the best safety or best corner. Second round, find me a second-tier edge. And third round, go for the running back. But I have no problem because you basically are getting Alvin Kamara. Now, is Alvin Kamara worth a 16 pick? Yes. That guy, to me, Swift reminds me of Alvin Kamara, and if you add him, he reminds me of the same guy. You know what I mean? So to me, with Alvin Kamara right now, if you had a chance to pick him at 16, would you get him? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see the energy and the long touchdown runs this guy will bring.
Well, the other thing you're saying that I totally agree with is that right now, you didn't say this, but it makes me think of this, but based on what you did say, right now the Falcons have a excitement void. There's a little bit of a lack of excitement. Now there's optimism that the team could be better this upcoming season, but optimism about being better is not the same thing about excitement about watching the team play. You want to get that excitement back. You want to make Mercedes-Benz Stadium really hum, not just because he went to Georgia. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of a coincidence, although I do think Georgia fans would really like this. To me, this is about getting back to that sort of 30-point threshold again. The Georgia Dome back in 2016, and really even some leftover remnants in 2017 after Shanahan, was kind of gone from there. But the Georgia Dome was rocking when, when you had this 30-point-a-game offense, when points were being scored and guys were having career years, Falcons fans were loving that.
Right.
Drafting a running back high in this draft. Now, listen, when it comes time to pay him in free agency, you don't do that. You move on, you find somebody else. But you get an exciting running back, a dynamic running back to go along with Ridley and Julio and what you have with Matt Ryan. All of a sudden, that brings the excitement back to Atlanta, which is something I think this organization needs right now.
But I think the Falcon fans, I think they would be fine with it too, especially if you don't have the edge guy. You got a guy that someone there that is not worthy of 16. But I tell you this, though, you add Swift in there, you talking about some shaking and baking. You're talking about a real threat now. So I wouldn't have a problem with that, but because if there's no edge there, I just don't want them reaching. Yeah. I don't want them reaching on the edge and like I've seen Chasen, he had some good run in the playoffs this year. Did pretty good in the national championship game. But I need surefire. Yeah. Or I want it because to me, Swift is as good a surefire pick as you can get. You already know what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think your point about surefire when it comes to Clavon Chasen is a really good one because I looked at some stats this week. He failed to record a sack in 8 of the 15 games LSU played this season. So here's a guy that had some nice moments against sometimes even good competition, but to sort of disappear more than half the time for the season, that's a bad look for a guy that you might be trying to build your entire defense around. And, based on the sort of eyewitness account, what he looks like, obviously Chasen looks as good in uniform as you're going to find. But the stats don't always suggest that.
Right, and I just talked to a general manager the other day. We were talking about pass rush. He said, what are your thoughts on this draft, Chuck? I said, well, to me, it's kind of average. It's not like last year we got all the Clemson guys. You got, you got Bosa, you got all these guys that were going to be absolute terrors. And what he said, this is not a great draft when it comes to defensive linemen. It's not. Yeah. But he said cornerbacks, some running backs. He said, this thing is stacked when you look at those positions, especially cornerback, and there's some unbelievable safeties out there. Yeah. Now, even the kid, what's the kid's name from LSU?
Grant Delpit.
There's some guys out there. Man.
Yeah. Delpit, another one of somebody else brought up Delpit in the comment section a minute ago.
What about the corner from
Dwight Thomas as well? Brought him up.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Dwight Thomas brought up Grant Delpit, but go ahead.
What about the cornerback from Ohio State?
Okudah I like. Yeah. Okuda's like a top 5 pick probably, though.
Oh, you never know.
I may be wrong, but maybe.
I'm reaching. I'm throwing it out there.
Rolla Ogden says the only running back I would have taken at 16 would have been Travis Etienne, a player that I know you like a lot too. Yeah.
Can't believe
I like
he went
Etienne
back to college.
a lot too. Etienne I think is going to be a good pro.
I can't believe he went back to college. I can't believe it.
Brian Hall says he thinks Atlanta picks too high for Chasen, basically saying I like Chasen as a first-round pick, but maybe not at 16. To me, at 16, you still want that impact player. You want to feel like you're drafting best at that position. That, to me, is not what Chasen is. Obviously, I think you would feel better about him if you're able to be drafting a little later, somewhere in the 20s, something along that line. That feels like better value to me, anyway, for a guy like Clavon Chasen.
Chasen's sort of back into the first round to me. From what I've seen, he's back into the first round. To me, could be early second round. I don't see Montez Sweat. I don't see Bosa, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But again, he might develop in that. I just see a guy who doesn't really have polished moves. He's a supercharged athlete, kind of runs around, uses a lot of effort to make sacks. But again, when you project these guys, a lot of people look at what will he be in 2 years? Yeah. What will he be as my coaching staff gets him? So he has an opportunity to be good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But a lot of it has to do with the coordinator, what team you go to. So there's so many things that can, decide how good Chasen's going to be. And hopefully, I wish the kid the best. Yeah. But I don't know quite for the Falcons because to me, he's a 3-4 outside backer.
I don't get a lot of compliments in the comment section, but Ron Bridges says he likes the way I think. He says 30 points a game. You're not going to lose too many games. I mentioned that's what Atlanta needs to try to shoot for build an identity around being a high-scoring offense. He says ask Kansas City about that. And while, just given the play calling acumen of a guy like Andy Reid, matching that might be difficult to do. It is the blueprint of you can get away with being okay on defense if you're scoring a bunch of points on offense.
Well, yeah, you do. You talked about Kansas City, and I said this, the best defense when the game ends, the defense that's going to make the biggest plays was Kansas City. Now, unless I saw something that y'all didn't see, I saw a low-scoring game. I saw Kansas City shutting the Niners down, right? So, to me, they held on. So, in this game at some point, yeah, Frisco started scoring, but ultimately Kansas City battled and played a great game defensively. Now, it helps to have, offense like you got, but we're kidding ourselves. Now, the quarterback for Kansas City is the number one quarterback in the league.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Right now we're saying, yeah, we want to, score 30 points. We can't compare ourselves to Kansas City. We can't. We ain't got Miko, your boy Miko,
right.
Freshman. I mean, a rookie. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got Sammy. What's his name? Sammy Watson?
Yeah, it's Watkins from Clemson.
Watkins.
Yeah.
We ain't got Sammy Watkins. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got Cheetah Hill. We just don't.
Yeah.
Right? And let's say something else. We don't know if we got it. Hopefully this year we'll have it. We ain't got the creativity when it comes to the offensive play.
Yeah, Andy Reid.
Andy Reid was
Andy Reid, I felt like was a brilliant coach before he won the Super Bowl. This is a smart mind. By the way, Gregory Brown, good comment from him, or at least an interesting comment. He says, and I think this is a reference to Clavon Chasen, we don't want to release a Vic Beasley just to draft another Vic Beasley with a different name.
It's too early.
That's a strong comparison between Chasen and Beasley right there. What do you think about that?
And that's absolutely unfair to the guy. He hadn't played one down in the National Football League. Let me tell you the real reason. I'm ultimately not one. He's a 3-4 backer. He's a 3-4. Unless we're going back to the true 3-4, we're a 4-3 team.
Yeah.
So the Falcons last year, when they had success on third downs and for as things moved, when Vic was back at defensive end, that's where he had success. So unless we're going to become a 3-4 team, a la Pittsburgh, a la multiple teams in the National Football League, why? He's a 3. Yeah. He is a true 3-4 backer. So he doesn't fit in with the Falcons number one at the end of the day from a scheme standpoint.
What about Desi Lou here on Facebook, who mentions the defensive end from Iowa, AJ Epinesa? We've kind of gone around and around about this. I'm going to shut up for a second, which is not easy for me to do. I'm going to shut up for a second. Tell me what you think of 280-pound AJ Epinesa. You mentioned before that you think Chasen's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker as opposed to a 4-3 defensive end. Yeah. Is the big guy Epinesa, he is big, is that a good fit for Atlanta's scheme when it's playing right now, what we assume Raheem Morris is going to do, what Dan Quinn is going to favor?
I think what you're going to get in this guy is, first thing is, Epinesa, you're going to get a guy who is what they call an in and out guy. He's going to start out at defensive end, right? He's strong. He'll give you some push. He'll make some plays here and there as far as a rusher, a lot of power. But what they're going to end up doing is he moves in at defensive tackle. Now let me give you the example for the Falcons, what this guy looks like from a guy who we had here the last couple of years. He's basically like Adrian Claiborne. On base downs, he's playing defensive end. They move AC inside, right? Yeah. So when you look at this guy, let me tell you who he is. He is Farrell from the Clemson Tigers. He is Clelin Ferrell from Clemson. Clemson. When he was at Clemson, he get some good rushes. He wasn't polished, right? Big guy, right?
Yeah.
He play on then he what? So he gets to go to the Raiders. Guess what the Raiders do? So on first down, he's playing defensive end. But when it's passing downs, Farrell moves inside.
Yeah.
Because he's not an edge rusher.
Yeah.
So what has happened out there? Farrell had some issues on the edge, so that's why they had to move him inside. So I don't want that guy. I don't. I need an edge guy who comes off the corner, who wins on the edge. I need John Abraham. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to be Abe. But
I know what you mean.
I need a guy. Abe ain't moving inside. I need a guy who's got the hand in the dirt.
That's a great point.
He is bending the corner, and he is putting pressure on the quarterback from the outside.
By the way, crazy folks on YouTube mentioned, you see Josh Norman got released by the Washington Redskins today. So that's a salary cap casualty I think you could have expected to see, just given the price tag associated here. I don't know that Norman's got anything left. What do you think?
I do.
Okay.
But here's what I think. I think he needs to do what my old teammate Ray Buchanan did to extend his career. I think Norman, who's a tough guy, I'd like to see Norman move to a free safety.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
I like to see Norman move to a free safety like Ray Boo did it in Atlanta. He things changed for him. Then he did what? Started playing safety. Charles Woodson. He did the same thing, was a cornerback. Then he moved to safety. Norman is tough. He can make tackles. I'd love to see that.
Slam Bradley also mentioned the situation left guard, mentioning the fact that Agono could play there, and that's another one of those things that Blank has kind of alluded to is one way or another. We've sort of slotted about 1 million different guys in these early draft picks Atlanta has, but you can't forget Arthur Blank's words in all of this when he mentioned position groups and spots where Atlanta could address here. The idea of using one of these early spots on the left guard is certainly something that Arthur Blank seemed to allude to in those comments that we talked about on this show, what was it, a week or so ago?
Yes, and I can see Falcons
goodness knows they need a left guard.
Yeah, I can see Falcons fans looking on that day and like, man, wow, we just got a left guard. But let me tell you this guard position's it's not like you think it is. It might not be sexy to our Falcon fans, but when you look what Quentin Nelson did for Indianapolis Colts, you got a guy who was a first-team All-Pro his rookie year that absolutely changed the dynamics of the organization. The best player on that team, the face of Indianapolis, is an offensive guard. He's loved.
Yeah.
He's on commercials.
Yeah, he's a fighter, man.
Yeah, so
he is chucking knucks.
So he's what?
Chucking knucks.
Okay, that's a good one. I ain't never heard that one. So, but if you can feel that need, you know what I mean. But to me, if he's the best player on your board at 16, people might not like it, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to go with him. And look, the best available guard going to be there at 16. But
yeah.
I mean that's high. But for Quentin, here's the same thing I said about Kamara. For Quentin Nelson, at this day and time, when you look where he was drafted, what he became, would he be worth for 16? Heck yeah.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Jarvis Baldwin says this. This is on YouTube. Draft the top corner available in the first round with the 2 second-round picks, defensive end, defensive tackle. 4th-round pick, another defensive end. So let me deal with Jarvis's first point on this. He says draft the top cornerback available. The problem is the word available is the word that means more than anything here because the top cornerback in the draft you're probably not going to get. So my point, and I realize you can disagree with this, but my point would be why would you settle for second best guy at this position or second best guy in that position when you can draft best guy at the position, which is what DeAndre Swift would be. That's my only point here. Obviously, if I have my chance at the best cornerback in the draft, I could be talked into that. Best defensive tackle in the draft, I could be talked into that. Best edge pass rusher in the draft. But when you draft 16, you're not getting best at those positions. So why not get the guy that you can get the best? You make a case for left guard, same argument essentially for running back. I can't get the best defensive lineman, but I can get the best running back, so why not take the best that's available?
And I agree with you on that. That's what I like, the best available. But I'm going to tell you what always happens in the draft. Everything slides back.
Yeah.
That quarterback group, all of a sudden there's another quarterback in there that we don't think. But I like what he just said about, getting a cornerback if that's the top corner happens to fall there. But look, I know you don't like trades, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not opposed to them trading.
I like trade backs, just like trade up.
I like trading up, all right? So especially if it's my guy, especially where these Atlanta Falcons are. We want to win the Super Bowl. Listen, everything they got to do, there's no more building for the future. The future is now. Mm-hmm. The future is Matt Ryan, Julio are in their primes. Look at this defense. Look at Grady, some of these guys. I'm making moves to win now. I'm actually not even thinking about 4 years from now.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair.
So what I'm doing is
that's fair.
I'm maybe getting rid of my 4th, maybe getting rid of my 3rd, and I'm trying to move up to where I think I can get my guy if he's there on that day.
Yeah.
And so remember, I still got a 1st, I still got a 2nd. Those should be 2 starters, right?
Yeah.
But the 1 starter is an impact starter if I'm going to do that.
So let me get one more on this topic of the running back, then we'll talk about some different stuff. Kevin Brentlinger on Facebook says that J.K. Dobbins is the best running back in this draft. You may end up being right. Dobbins may go on to have the better career because obviously there's a chance that's going to be the case. Here's the one thing I'd caution you on, though. Don't assume that Dobbins is the better back because he played in a better offense. And that's just the facts. Georgia's offense is not good this past season. I think DeAndre Swift suffered from the fact that most of the time defenses sort of knew when Swift was going to get the ball, and they kind of keyed on that. Dobbins played in a lot more dynamic offense at Ohio State this past year, and I think he benefited from that. Go back and look at what DeAndre Swift did in 2018 when Georgia's offense had McCole Hardman still and had some more weapons available to it. I think you saw a better performance from Swift in a better offense in 2018. Dobbins may have the better career. You may be right about that. But my bet is still on DeAndre Swift because I'm not going to be swayed by the fact that in his last year at Georgia, he played in what I think was an inferior offense compared to some of the other offense, even Etienne, who I think is a really good player. But Clemson's just a better offense than Georgia is. I don't think you blame Swift for that, but I'm also not going to punish him because what Georgia was doing for the most part was too predictable.
I think they're just different backs. Dobbins is, to me, more going, straight going downhill. Swift is more of a jitterbug to me, left, right, go downhill. But to me, when you look at Swift, you look at a guy that I would like to see develop as a receiver. Dobbins is good, but I like Swift. But, well, look, man, Swift did play behind the greatest offensive line in the history of football.
They had a good year.
Before the season, they were the greatest, the Great Wall.
Listen,
hold up, Brandon. No, you can't make no excuses.
I mean,
don't make no excuses. Don't make no
season.
excuses for the boys. Listen,
I'm the one that said they weren't good.
No, man, look, you said that in the end, but before this season, everybody was like, this could be the greatest offensive line in Georgia history. So Swift had some advantage. He had, how many first-rounders on that line? It's going to be, 2 possibly?
Well, definitely one. Maybe a second. Wilson may go in first.
And I'm being a knucklehead, being sarcastic.
No, I know what you mean.
But look, I agree with you. There was a difference in, the offenses that Swift played in, no doubt.
By the way, Victor Vershawn Phillips asked the question. We've certainly dealt with this a lot. So what is really going to happen here with Austin Hooper? Let me give you my theory on this.
Give me a theory.
All right. I think right now you've got aggressive posturing on both sides. Atlanta is sort of coming in this from the standpoint of, hey, we're not even sure we can re-sign him. We're not even sure we can afford to do that. That obviously feels like a certain degree of posturing right there. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of this talk of, well, listen, he may command $13 million in the free agent market. I think that's probably coming from a source probably close to the Hooper side of things. Sounds like the kind of thing an agent would say. So right now, I think you've got a lot of posturing, a lot of movement here on both sides. I don't think the real negotiation of this Hooper thing has started yet. Because if it has, if this is for real what's going on, then I think you look at a situation right now where it seems not that likely that he's going to come back to Atlanta based on the way things are kind of playing out right now. But for the most part, we're just not there yet. I don't think the real negotiation on this has started yet.
But I think there's some signs out there. Mm-hmm. I really do. And I like Hoop, but I just think there's some signs out there. And looking, there's some really good tight ends in this draft. Now, we're talking about second round. Hey, maybe the best tight end available is out there, third round. But I think ultimately, remember, Dan Quinn is a defensive-minded guy. The offense, I just think the offense has enough even without Hooper. Now, I'd love to have Hooper in there, right? The offense has enough ultimately without Hooper, right? Mm-hmm. I just think they're going to try to re-sign like Devondre Campbell, and I think they got that young defender, and I think they value, a young defender over a tight end because you got Julio, you got Ridley, you got some guys, and think about this. Part of what they're going to draft is also going to shape what happens with Hooper. But I think they're going to look. I think what's going to happen with Hooper, there's going to be a bottom end price that they're going to go for, and if it's not there, they're going to sacrifice him and say, you know what, we don't want to pay this amount. And I just think because remember they didn't pay Julio, Grady. Yeah, his money's not there.
All right, it's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Chuck Smith, the former Atlanta Falcon. My name's Brandon Adams. It's great to have you with us. By the way, as you get ready for Falcons free agency, we're going to talk about another name here in a moment that could be certainly one to pay close attention to. You want to follow all of this, getting ready for the draft. The best way to do that is get the most in-depth Falcons coverage available by becoming an AJC subscriber. When you go to the website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, you get a variety of different choices. You can get the daily e-paper sent to your device, iPad, phone, whatever else. You can read it that way every single day. You want Sunday home delivery, you can get that. You want 7-day home delivery, you can get that as well. Of course, you can cancel anytime, but as a special thank you to you for signing up to become an AJC subscriber. As a special gift, we have this complimentary Atlanta Falcons branded cooler. The AJC and the Atlanta Falcons are proud partners. One of the ways that we share that and show that off is with this cooler. But if you want yours, you got to become an AJC subscriber. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. And you can take advantage of that. All right, let me go to Pro Football Focus here for a moment, who, in talking about the moves the Falcons could make here during this offseason, mentions the idea that Keanu Neal could be done here after 2 really bad injuries over the course of the last couple of years. According to PFF, they'll save you $6.5 million for the upcoming season. Maybe I'm wrong for feeling this way, but Neal, when healthy, is just such a good fit for the Dan Quinn defense, or at least we still think the Quinn defense is going to be with Raheem Morris kind of leading the way there as the coordinator there. But when healthy, he's such a good fit. And you may say, well, at this point in time, the chances of him being healthy are just not great. And that may be just a fact. You can't get around that. But I'm rooting for Neal to still be on this team if I'm a Falcon fan, because I think that he plugs a hole, and when healthy, he fills that spot. If he's not healthy, then you got to save the money. But Neal is not one of those guys, if I'm the Falcons, I want to just sort of quickly move on from. I want to give him a chance to sort of still be a fit here, because when he's healthy, he's obviously a fit.
Oh, he's a beast, no question. He's a hammer around there. He's he's an intimidator, all the things that you want in the safety. Yeah. But he's also been injured the last 2 years. So when you're looking at a team, that's where sometimes you got to take the emotion out. And I think, he's going to get every chance that a guy can get to get healthy.
Yeah.
But I've also saying this on behalf of Keanu Neal, I have seen guys get way more injuries than this and come back. So it's not over yet.
Yeah.
But you got to prepare like it is. You got to prepare, and that's not saying bring somebody in to take his job, but you got to have a viable backup for Keanu Neal, because in camp, he ain't going to be hammering the reps.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? He's not going to be killing in preseason. So you also, like I said, you got to have someone that's there, but Keanu Neal can get healthy. But there's no question that has got to be one of the storylines going with the Falcons. How does he develop and get healthy, and who's going to play the strong free safeties positions?
Yeah, because that's obviously a big thing that you got to figure out. And it could be that, $6.5 million is not a small amount of money when you talk about the salary cap issues that Atlanta's facing. So it could be that the money alone dictates the move has to be made. But of all the guys that we kind of talk about, as I said before, apart from the money, I'm not so sure Freeman's supposed to have a home in Atlanta anymore. So the same thing about Vic Beasley. If you could tell me that Neal is healthy, then that's a guy I think solves a problem for you. The problem is no one can say that he's going to be healthy.
No one can say that. But let me just talk as I'm the GM.
Yeah.
I'm the GM of just the Athens Flyers, okay? My NFL team. I don't care who you are. I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. No emotions in there. I'm like Bill Belichick.
Right.
If you don't fit in here and you're trying to get a lot of money and I can't get nothing out of you, I'm cutting you. Or I'm going to trade you. A la New England with Richard Seymour, right? Mm-hmm. Traded him. He won a lot of money. Guess what happened? You up out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
New England's been good at that.
They'll cut you. So as much as we want to play with the emotion, to me sometimes that gets in the way of individual coaches and general managers. The emotions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. I love you, Keanu. We're gonna do everything we can to give you an opportunity to come back. But how can I not realistically plan for someone to help me? Let's look at it from the standpoint of just common sense. Common sense.
Yeah.
2 injuries, I got to have someone there. I got to be prepared for what might not be there.
Yeah, and Neal is one of those great examples of sometimes drafting for a need really does work, because when Atlanta drafted him, I think most of the people would have said coming out of Florida that it was a little bit of a reach when the Falcons took him, but this was such a good marriage of kind of that sort of bigger, rangier safety, the way that Quinn always seemed to have success with the Seattle Seahawks. This was such a good fit for the Dan Quinn defense that even reaching to draft him where you did, it ended up kind of working out okay. Most of the time, reaching for a player because it fits a need for you, that can seem like a mistake. In the case of Neal, though, it worked out really well.
Yeah, man, listen, Keanu Neal's a beast. Keanu Neal's a hammer. Keanu Neal was on his way to being one of the top, safeties in the game. Mm-hmm. And again, he has an opportunity. He's the kind of guy that's going to put in the work, right?
Yeah.
I've seen guys have way more injuries, so I'm not saying he's out. But if I'm an executive, I got to prepare like he's not going to be there. He ain't been in the last 2 years, but he can do it, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Keanu comes on and has a Pro Bowl career, moving on with lots of accolades.
Lisa Shepard agrees with you on Facebook, saying, take the emotions out of it, develop the roster to win the Super Bowl now. That's it. Atlanta wants a ring, and obviously I agree with that as well. I guess my point here is that if Neal is healthy, he is your best option to safety. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who's going to do that better than I think he'd be able to do it. But the chances are he's just not healthy, and the unemotional decision you have to make is that $6.5 million is incredibly valuable right now.
Yeah, and then let's look at what we're talking about now here. This comes back to this little pride factor.
Yeah.
Keanu Neal, say if he doesn't come back and you're accountable for what happens in your career. So nobody's going to say, wow, he didn't play long because he had injuries. That's part of the accountability of the team that brings you in. You got Vic Beasley. You got Freeman. You know what I'm saying? So you start looking at guys that didn't measure up. Now praying that Tack is, comes back and can do something. You got 4 guys. Those guys were high draft picks. Outside, what I'm saying, outside of Freeman.
Yeah.
Those are 3 first-rounders that didn't pan out ultimately to help you get to a Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. So it starts being a source of pride, and then sometimes that emotion gets involved in it.
So let me get Fred Butts here on YouTube here for a moment, who says, listen, I just want the Falcons to have a dominant defense. Unfortunately, here's where I feel like I have to sort of keep it real here for a moment, that Atlanta, to me, is so far away from being able to have a dominant defense because you really don't have any kind of lockdown corner. I mean, Trufont's sort of okay, but he's not really any better than okay. There's no elite pass rusher. There's no run-stopping defensive lineman. You've got guys who are capable. Devonta Campbell, assuming you sign him, is a fine player, but he's not a great player at this stage of his career. Really, at all 3 levels of the defense, you don't really have that. Yeah. I mean, now Grady Jarrett's one of the best in the league. So you got
one guy can't.
But one guy, that's exactly right. One guy is not the bedrock that elite defense is built around, and that's why so much of my interest is on offense. Do you draft the running back? Do you re-sign Austin Hooper? Because while Atlanta's a long way away from being a great defense, it's not that far away from being a great offense. It wasn't great this year, it's far from it. But you've got the pieces, the receivers, Matt Ryan. You've got the pieces to be very close to being great there. And you know what? To go back to a conversation we had near the beginning of the show, if you are great on offense, then guess what? You've only got to be average on defense. A great offense and an average defense is playing in February.
Man, you hit a home run. I agree with you on that when it comes to the defense. You got some holes to fill. Mm-hmm. I mean, you still got to figure out what's going on with Devonta Campbell. You got Debo in the middle, Deion Jones, but what else do you really got?
Yeah.
Who's the other linebacker? Who's that guy who's going to, make the plays? Who's your other cover guy? We talked about the cornerback situation. Grady Jarrett, one guy can't do it on his own.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Then you look at, you got Allen Bailey, you got some other serviceable defensive linemen, but at the edges, you have nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring back Adrian Claiborne, I mean, he's going to be, efficient. He's an inside guy. He's going to, give you, his 15 plays a game, but the premium position in the league is edge rushers.
Yeah.
You have none. And then you're depending on someone to come back. So Takk McKinley's in the same situation to me as Keanu Neal. You gotta prepare like he's going to get injured again. You got to prepare. Man, it's a tough situation. So you make a good point. And now back to that, Swift. Mm-hmm. That'd be another nice little check on the offense. So as I'm thinking about it, he kind of got me looking at things a little differently. When I look at it, what's our best chance to win a Super Bowl? Is it stopping everybody, holding people to 15 points, try to step under 21 points, or is it putting up 30? We probably got a better chance to go 30 and roll with the offense.
I think you're right about that. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. You're getting together, watch some. There's still some football on TV this weekend. All other kinds of sports there as well. Miller Lite, obviously, great choice for whatever you're doing. It's the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. We appreciate them bringing and presenting AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite here all season long. All right, somebody wants to talk some free agent stuff. Let's do that here for a moment. Eddie Kane Jr. 30 says, who would you guys recommend signing in free agency? Well, the good news is that our friends at Pro Football Focus have a couple of potential names for Atlanta to target. One of those, Ronald Blair, a defensive end most recently from San Francisco. That's the kind of name that Atlanta could potentially target right there, right?
Yeah, because he's better than what we got.
Yeah.
He's also a good pass rusher. Remember who's out there with, he's in Frisco. You got D Ford, you got Bosa, it's hard for him to get on the field, but he can rush. He's an upgrade. He wouldn't command so much money because the guys I want, they way over the cap.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we joked about this before. Atlanta's like the team that has to sort of cut up its credit cards right now. Yeah. It's been on too many expensive vacations. Yeah. It's bought too much stuff at the department store. It's got to sort of live a little bit more frugal lifestyle here as of late. So those high-end free agents are not really shopping for them. That's an example of somebody Atlanta could get. Also, PFF kind of pointing out Mackenzie Alexander, cornerback, been with the Minnesota Vikings. Mm-hmm. That's one of those guys that you might be able to bring in and do something with, maybe.
Well, yeah, what Mackenzie Alexander brings in, as I watch him, he has the ability. He's a shutdown corner, but he can play man to man. That's what I love about him. Yeah. And the Falcons, they need someone that can lock up on one of the big-time receivers and shut him down. We need a Michael Thomas buster. You got to find somebody, number one, to win in your division with Michael Thomas. The other teams they got a couple receivers in Tampa, but I know I like McKenzie.
Let me read what Pro Football Focus says about McKenzie, because it's actually pretty interesting. Let me see if I can find this. I got like 87 browsers open. Hold on one second, y'all. All right, here's the thing on Mackenzie Alexander. It says Atlanta doesn't have a lot of money to spend, so they'll have to take a few small risks in players, such as Mackenzie Alexander. In 2018, Alexander produced the 17th highest grade at his position after being 110th the prior year. He dipped to 48th in 2019, but for $4 million a year, that's worth pursuing. So I realize that ain't that sexy of a description, right? Pretty good in 2018 after being awful the year before that and kind of dipping back down to being awful again. But as Pro Football Focus kind of points out here, that this is actually not good at all. That Trufant's the only cornerback on the entire Falcons organization to rank among the 50 best when it comes to a coverage grade. So listen, given how bad Atlanta's been in coverage, even for a guy like Mackenzie Alexander, who's really kind of only been okay one time out of the last 3 years, you can't really be turning your nose up at that too much, can you?
No, I mean, listen, we're trying to get guys, we're going for second-tier guys.
Yeah.
We're guys that are going to come in, they're serviceable, but we know they're not going to be stars, but they're going to fit right in the defense. Blair comes in as a pass rusher, he's better than what we got. And remember, everybody's going to be trying to go for these cats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, exactly.
So, everybody. So they're going to get.
Listen, this is sort of like when they put like the bargain bin stuff out at whatever store you like to go to. Like everybody's rushing to there, like Black Friday sales, everybody trying to get their stuff. Like all these lower price free agents, it ain't just Atlanta shopping in that aisle. Everybody's trying to get over there and get somebody for not too expensive a price tag, including Trey Boston, safety, most recently with the Carolina Panthers. Pro Football Focus apparently loves him. Let me read you a little bit of this. We'll take more comments. PFF says there hasn't been a more underrated player in the league the past few years than Trey Boston. He'd be a huge value add for Atlanta. This is a free agent Atlanta could get. With 3 different teams in each of the past 3 seasons, Boston's posted coverage grades ranked 9th, 18th, and 4th, respectively. While in coverage during that stretch, he's produced 27 combined pass breakups and interceptions while allowing only 20 first downs. The truth is, I didn't know much about him before I read this, but you know what? After hearing that, go get it.
Yeah, again, one of those second-tier guys, go get him. I got a guy, I don't know if they have him in here. I got a guy that will solve the pass rush needs right now, Robert Quinn from Dallas.
Okay.
Right now, he can rush. He's an absolute beast on the edge still. That's one of the guys I want to look at. But, the other guys at the top of the list ain't going to happen. But there's some guys out there.
All right, a couple of other comments here, then we're going to kind of get ready to move on here. I do agree with something that Fred Butt says. All the pressure's on Matt Ryan. He's carried the franchise for so long. He needs help from the defense to win a Super Bowl. So the one thing, I understand where you're coming from on that. I do think there's pressure on Ryan this year. And I think there's pressure in the organization to give Ryan everything that he needs. Because let's face it, the real issue facing Atlanta is we're talking about Phillip Rivers being out in Los Angeles. We're talking, the reason I look at my watch is because of time's passing here for these guys. Rivers done in Los Angeles. Drew Brees potentially done in New Orleans. These quarterbacks are moving on. Teams are moving on from them. There have been rumors out there that the Lions may be looking to trade Matthew Stafford. Atlanta is not that far away from having these same kind of discussions. So from Fred's standpoint, the pressure here is in on Atlanta to get the most out of Ryan, and frankly, Julio Jones is in that same conversation. Get the most out of these guys while you have the opportunity. And an okay defense can get you by if you're maximizing the potential of these tens upon tens of millions of dollars per year that you've got invested in the Julio Jones and the Matt Ryans right now.
Well, one of the biggest disappointments for me as far as Falcons as it relates to Matt Ryan is he's been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the last 4 or 5 years. And this year he got sacked 48 times, which was the most in the NFL. He's a franchise quarterback. He is a franchise quarterback to me. Listen, you're only going to go as far as your quarterback goes. Look at the teams that played in the Super Bowl. Look at them. Those quarterbacks were fantastic. Both of them were fantastic in the game. Garoppolo until the fourth quarter. But Matt Ryan, if we're going to win a Super Bowl, he's going to have to win some games that we're not supposed to win. He's going to continue to have to put the team in the right position, but also be a leader. Matt Ryan, he's the guy. Yeah,
a couple other comments here. Danny Pan says there's pressure on Ryan every year, and that's probably true. When you're the franchise quarterback, that's certainly going to be the case. Brian Rogers says we had Ryan for years. It's about time to start looking because of his age, and obviously I don't think it's going to happen this year, and it may not happen next year, but before long, you're getting into a situation where that's going to be a very real discussion. By the way, change the subject here just briefly on the topic of quarterbacks. See, there's some rumors out there now that Cincinnati might do something other than Joe Burrow with the first pick, or there may be a trade up for a player other than Burrow, number 1 overall, that Tua Tagovailoa could be in that discussion. Have you seen this? Would you take Tua over Burrow?
I wouldn't.
Too many injury concerns for me, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. And Burrow, everything I've seen from Burrow, he can throw, he can move, he's a leader, got a little swag about him. To me, I wouldn't do that. But there's a guy called Mr. Brown who runs the Cincinnati Bengals, who does the contracts, who work the position coaches. Their agents can't negotiate with he won't negotiate with agents. Mr. Brown, right? Mm-hmm. He runs everything. He's over personnel. He's over how they travel. He is the owner. But that's why the Bengals are terrible. Listen, man, the Bengals practice right outside the stadium, and it's about 4 highways over top. You got Exhausting. You got right over here, so Corey, where they're doing. I mean, it's terrible.
It's a different feel, right?
Listen, it's one of the worst places to play in the NFL. Mr. Brown, it's a family-owned team, so he ain't got a lot to put into it. So to me, he could make. I'm just basically saying this. The old man could make a mistake like that. I believe.
You know who else practices right next to the stadium? It's Jacksonville. It's kind of the same setup, right?
No, it's different though. This is a different kind of setup. Jacksonville. No, this is like a dust bowl where Cincinnati practices at. It really is.
Yeah, that sounds funny. So we're getting to that time of year where there are going to be a lot of draft rumors sort of popping up. I think that's going to be pretty fun. Let me also do this. So we've got like some schedule rankings in place now, and on the basis of some of those wins that Falcons fans were cheering on the end of the year, you got tacked on some tougher games this upcoming season. Atlanta has, on paper anyway, 5th toughest schedule for the upcoming season. 5th toughest schedule for the 2020 season. By the way, the reason why you pick 16 right now, all those other 7 and 9 teams, you're at the sort of the bottom end of that, is because you had the toughest schedule a year ago. Atlanta's been in kind of a tough, of all the teams in comparison, by the way. Yeah, see all those 7 and 9 teams? So Atlanta could have potentially picked 11th, picking instead at 16, 7 and 9 teams all the way around. Atlanta lost tiebreakers with every one of them because Atlanta had a strength of schedule that was tougher a year ago, and now on paper, for the upcoming year, Atlanta also looking to have 5th toughest schedule. Away games, obviously Tampa Bay and New Orleans and Carolina, but you got to go to the world champion Kansas City Chiefs next year. We don't know when yet, but that's where you're going. You got the Chargers, have no idea who their quarterback will be. Green Bay, Minnesota, Dallas. Those are tough road games. Fun road trips, but tough road games.
And those are the kind of teams that, how every year you say, well, you never know how good the teams are going to be.
Right.
Those teams are going to be pretty good.
I mean, some of them are going to be, for sure. They may not all be, but most of them are going to be.
They're going to be like Dallas, right?
Yeah.
You said Dallas, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have Dak. They're going to have Ezekiel, right? They got a good defense. And they got a new coach who's going to bring a different kind of look and some exuberance, a different kind of push, right? Who else the Falcons, you say? Green Bay.
On the road.
Green Bay, we already know. Listen, the teams that got these franchise quarterbacks are going to be solid.
Yeah.
I mean, who else did we say on there? You got it up?
Again. Yeah. Minnesota on the road. Second year in a row playing at Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota's tough to play on the road. They got a great defense. So the core teams that we've just kind of talked about, these are the kind of teams that are going to just fall off and win 1 or 2 games. They're not.
Home teams beyond the division games, Bears, Lions, Broncos, Raiders, Seahawks. Of course, there's a chance that Denver game is going to be in London, I guess. So home slate may be a little bit easier to navigate. Seattle won't be a pushover, but that road slate is looking pretty tough.
The Raiders won't be a pushover.
Yeah.
The Raiders
were
what?
The Raiders. You love the Raiders. Oh, you work there. That's what it is. I couldn't figure out what this was about.
Those my boys, man. Mayock and Gruden.
That's right. Okay, that makes sense.
But look, though. They were like a win. They were a team losing 2 teams.
No, I think you're right.
They almost made the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
The Raiders this year, people, if you go look at how the season kind of finished, man, the Raiders balled out.
I think Mayock's one of those guys that got kind of pulled off of TV or NFL Network, whatever, and he's actually worked out really well as a GM thus far, better than I probably thought he would have.
Mayock knows his stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the traditional way of getting your executives, getting your coaches has to change. I like the NBA model. You don't have to be 20 years as a coach before you come in, right? Mayock was a player. He's an evaluator. Man, I thought it was a brilliant move, and look what they've done. Look at the Jacobs they got. The running back they got. Look at all the guys. Everyone, their rookies had great seasons this year.
All right, let me do this before we get ready to go here and get y'all ready for the weekend. there's some interesting movement going on with the NFC South when it comes to quarterbacks. We may have quite a little carousel spinning here. We've already talked about the future of Cam Newton, very much up in the air in Carolina. Don't know how that's going to be resolved. Drew Brees, could he be done in New Orleans? We don't know about that either. There's also an interesting quote recently from Taysom Hill, who I do like, who apparently said, I want to play quarterback in this league, and if New Orleans don't view me that way, well, then I'm going to have to leave. So you got
look at him.
You got unhappy folks in New Orleans. There's rumors that Bruce Arians, the Bucs coach, who's thought to be a good tutor of quarterbacks, he may want to work with Phillip Rivers, whose time with the Chargers is done.
I think that's a good fit right there. But Taysom Hill, dude.
I like him better than you do. I think he's a good player.
No, I do like what he brings to the table, but I don't like him as no quarterback. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened to Teddy Bridgewater being the number 2 all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden you got Hill becoming this guy, but remember, Teddy Bridgewater was balling. He helped them win games. You know, anytime he's back there, he's done well. But Hill, I don't like hearing them prima donna demands. That, to me, a guy, he's been there. They built him up. Look, he's one of the most popular players on that team by a long shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I would love for him to be the quarterback in New Orleans as our Falcons compete against him. I'd love to see that.
Well, speaking of, that's well said. Speaking of prima donnas, David Tepper, the Carolina Panthers owner, talking about Cam Newton, his future in Charlotte, saying, I've said again and again, this is the Panthers owner, it's a question of how healthy he is. That's the number one overwhelming thing. Everything comes from that. There's a lot of different things that can happen. First, is he healthy? Tell me that, and then we can talk. Is Newton still an attractive quarterback option out there? If he's done in Carolina, will there be a lot of teams you think that want to be in the Cam Newton business?
I think there'll be a few. I definitely think. But I think the injury thing to his shoulder is a matter if he can pass the physical and what they think about his long-term projection, because he's not going to be signed for 1 or 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like San Diego, this is a talented team in San Diego. I can see them pulling into Cam Newton. There's some different teams out there that I can see. Jacksonville, which to me, he pops in there, right? So I can see people looking at Cam, but I don't see a lot of people kicking the door in to get Cam Newton.
Peter Kaz on our Facebook comment section talking about the way that he dresses. That's a real turnoff for me. All that fashion stuff.
Man, please. You seen Russell, what's his name? You seen all the guys in the NBA and this is the young boy swag, man.
That's a little too much for me.
Not to me. So see, that's the thing. This is one thing I have learned in this business. And I'm not saying people look down on these guys, but I try to stand, look eye to eye with them and see what they're going through. I don't try to look down on them and try to make judgment because I'm 50 years old.
Yeah.
Look, man, my son wears tight jeans. My son, got big hair like this, the wild hair generation.
Hold on. Cam Newton pins a foxtail to his coat and stuff. It's one thing to wear tighter jeans. It's another thing to like be pinning foxtails on and stuff like that.
That's his style. Dennis Rodman had his style. Right? Look at it. Listen,
y'all don't act like you don't know what Chuck Smith would be saying in 1998 if somebody.
This ain't 98. We had back then. I had a box with a curl and a rat tail.
Chuck would be locking somebody in their locker if they came in dressed like.
We had guys. Look, in my era, we had guys like that. I used to wear overalls with jewelry. Look, if Mike could find a picture of Deion Sanders, Andre Rison, I used to have push waves. I had these giant waves that went this way. I used to wear mink coats. Back then, people were like, yo, you guys are kind of flashy.
Like a mink coat, I don't mind.
But listen.
It's the foxtail that drives me crazy. You know what I'm talking about? Like he has like a little foxtail dangling.
I mean, listen.
The mink coat, I don't mind.
Listen, man, this new generation, man, they wear some different stuff. And Cam's just like, that's not.
That guy right there.
That's the same haircut.
Put up with Cam Newton dressing like.
But back in the day, I mean, look. That's not me either, Mike. We got to find it. And that's not a good one. You got me up there with Eugene, man. You can't be putting me up there, Eugene, man. I'm good with Dan.
Tough on Eugene Robinson.
Tough on Eugene, man.
By the way, Taylor, we got to go after this, but Taylor Robleski says, it was actually talking about, he thought that Bill Belichick might go after Cam Newton. I'd be very interested to see. Look at that, man.
That's a bad look, man. My lips all shiny, mouth all open. Mike, you ain't got that one good picture.
No, you're playing hard.
And back then, it looked like I had gray hair.
Wait, is that sweat?
I couldn't even grow a beard.
Are you sweating that much, or you just pour some Gatorade on your hair?
No, I was sweating. I couldn't even grow a beard back then, Mike. You got to get, I couldn't even grow a beard back then.
Look at that sweat coming down. That's playing hard right there.
I know.
That is playing hard.
That was a win. I had probably.
I wish they still played that hard.
They do play. They're going to win. Well, let me just slow that down real quick. Let me just slow that down. They're going to have Falcons have a great year. I'm pulling for them.
Isaiah Davis said, Chuck looks mad. I can't say the rest of that. Yeah, listen, so I love those game day pictures now from the past. Hey, we got to go. Thanks for being here, y'all. AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. We appreciate them for making it possible. However, we could not do the show if you weren't here for us each and every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. Hope you'll have a great weekend. Chuck, hope you have a good weekend.
I'm going to have one. Appreciate it.
You getting these football players ready for the draft right now?
No question. I'm going to bring someone up here.
No, we'll have a good time with that. We'll see you Monday, 1 p.m. AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Talk to you then, everybody.